there were 4 other girls there. Cash has got so many girls sitting around in his living room. So I parked my car there and I jumped into his car. He's got a lot. Oh, my goodness. The story has to be continued.
Hi, my name is Miss Newlove and I'm one of the hosts of a brand new show brought to you by Bestel Foundation.
The Wellbeing Show is to help reach BAME families, to help with mental health, support and emotional needs. The Wellbeing Show streams live every Tuesday at 8 to 9 p.m. on Diversity Radio via Facebook, YouTube and Mixcloud. So tell your family and friends to tune in as we discuss topics that affect our well-being. The Wellbeing Show is proudly sponsored by NHS South London and Maudsley, the National Lottery Community Fund, and partnered with Real Insight, Base, 60 Seconds Creative Studio, and Gold Diggers Talk Show. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Bestel Foundation's The Wellbeing Show. Thank you for joining us this evening. And as usual, I have my co-host, Miss Jacqui Obeng, who is a teacher in business and economics and also the CEO of Base, Become a Successful Entrepreneur. But before I bring my co-host on, I just want to let you guys know that we have an amazing guest. Representing Real Insight Consultant, who are one of our partners. So it's going to be an amazing show. We're talking about self-stigma, stigma and self-stigma. So yeah, first of all, we'd like to acknowledge our sponsors, who are South London and Maudsley NHS Trust, also the National Lottery Community Fund, and our partners are 60 Seconds Creative Studio, Real Insight Consultant, Base, Become a Successful Entrepreneur, Gold Diggers Talk Show, which belongs to myself, and 60 Seconds Creative Studio. Did I mention that? Well, yes, 60 Seconds Creative Studio. So yes, we're very excited today. We're talking about something completely different from what we've been discussing the past weeks. We've been focusing a lot on the BAME community and how mental health affects the BAME community. But today, like I said, we're talking about stigma. So Jacqui, are you here? Miss
Yes,
Obeng?
I'm here. Yes, Miss Newlove. How are you? Oh, it was fabulous. As I was saying previously, we went out, met a couple of old friends. It was a good one. Yeah, lovely birthday party over the Easter. You had a good one.
That's good.
How about you? Good one?
It was quiet. But I can see that you were enjoying you're taking care of your social wellness.
Exactly. Because I like to dance a lot. I like to obviously listen to music. It's a big thing with me. So I like to take advantage of the holidays. So we've got an interesting show today. Our guest, Mr. Lee Cohen, is here with us. We had a brilliant show last week, Tuesday, with our guest, DJ Francis. Who discussed about how he dealt with his losses and how that affected his mental well-being. But today, very interesting one, we're talking about stigma and also self-stigma. And Mr. Cohen is a living testimony of those two key terminologies. So again, you're going to introduce yourself, talk about yourself, Mr. Cohen, and your background, because we've got a lot of questions for you, which are going to educate us about stigma. So welcome to the Wellbeing Show, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. Call me Lee. Call me Lee.
Lee.
Yeah,
well, welcome, Lee.
No, it's not Mr. Cohen, it's Lee.
Okay, Lee. Right, so it's good to be formal, but we'll take it from here, Lee. Tell us about who you are. Tell us about your background, and we'll take it from there.
I'm 55, and
You don't look
but I looked after myself.
Good.
I had a background in painting and decorating, a bit of printing. Studied martial arts for a number of years, and got myself on the negative side of life when I was 28.
Okay.
And ended up in a mental health hospital.
Okay. Tell us about your progress, what you've done.
Well, I had 6 admissions before I finally got to where I am. So I've got 30 years experience in the mental health system.
That's really good. Can you tell us about your obviously your expertise in terms of employment, what you do at the moment?
Well, I'm actually I work as a bank staff at Trust headquarters on reception, where I'm the face of the NHS really, because I'm a mix of all the big wigs and stuff. So you know,
and also you work for
CEOs.
the Real Insight. Tell us about Real Insight.
Yeah. Well, it's just something that came about through people expressing how they feel and learning about each other, just about talking to each other, really.
Good.
Also, I've co-produced risk assessment training with a member of staff from Trust headquarters, and I was involved in security training as well.
Fabulous.
And I was also a writer for the Inside Out magazine at Ealing.
Tell us about
Ealing
that.
Trust. Well, it's a magazine that's for the service users. We try to talk about our experiences, how we've learned, and how to give them tips on how to get through the issues that they're dealing with currently.
Good to hear. Miss Newlove, could you take over then, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Lee about the trust, because he says the trust. Does he mean the NHS trust?
Yeah, it's West London I work for.
Okay, so NHS Trust headquarters.
Yeah, it covers West London, yeah.
Okay, I understand. So welcome to the Wellbeing Show. Thank you for that introduction. I'm sure we're going to find out a lot more about you. We're going to go in depth in all these things that you spoke about whilst you're introducing yourself. But before we go into our topic, I just want to introduce Bestel Child and Adult Psychiatric Foundation, who are committed to ensuring accessibility of their services, either via sorry, I can
so we've got a bit of feedback.
Yeah. Yes, so I'd like to introduce Bestel Child and Adult Psychiatric Foundation, who are committed to ensuring accessibility of their services via their website, various social media platforms. Alternatively, you can reach the team by their website, which is going across the screen now, I believe, and also contact numbers of our team, which are Stella, Christabel, Hilda, and Marion. So the numbers and the contact details for Bestel Foundation will be going across the screen during the show. So I'll hand it back over to Jacqueline.
Okay, so apologies about that interference. Not sure where that came from.
Yes,
we're going to go through. We're just going to go through stigma first of all. Okay, what is stigma first of all, and then we're going to dwell into self-stigma. Okay, obviously we're not clinical staff. We've got Lee here to support us and to make us understand how stigma works, what it is, and how we can overcome stigma. So first of all, Lee, if you can tell us, can you describe and explain what stigma is, please?
Stigma is it's a negative we're dealing with. It's a label. It's
right.
it's born from fear, from being different, from jealousy, all negative things.
Right.
Unlike praise and love and understanding, it comes from the negative branch of life. Right. So it's a label, basically.
Right. So it's a label of how a person feels, or what they experience.
It's about what they're experiencing as well as how they feel, and this is the complicated bit. They might be self-stigmatizing themselves when they do the stigma.
So meaning what?
Meaning they might be experiencing the feelings themselves and just projecting them onto other people.
Exactly. Okay. And therefore that is stigma in general?
I believe so. From my experience, it's like I say, it's born from fear and jealousy.
Okay, so it's like a particular experience or circumstances of one person feels, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
As like I said, it's a label. So say someone's been causing problems, that's they're stigmatized for being a troublemaker.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Of course it does. So if we want to move into like the medical aspect of it, how would we label stigma? So for example, we're taking care of our well-being and we're moving it over to the medical bit. How would you label a stigma person or stigma? How would you explain that?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, stigma is a bit of a disease that we can all carry a part of in our DNA. It's a bit like life. It's something you have to learn to control, and something we're all capable of. And that's where when you understand what it is, you can help the system by neutralizing it, by being more understanding and not judgmental. And listening to what people say instead of just listening to gossip. Always listen to both sides of the story and understand where the person's coming from. Don't just listen to one side.
Right. So then the examples, isn't it, Miss Newlove?
So it's almost, so stigma is almost like it's a mark of disgrace. Like
it's but it's a disease. It's like a disease that can run rife, and it's a very like a yes man's thing, like where people with influence can create stigma around people with influence around other people.
Okay. So we're going to
in order to control people. Yeah.
Okay, I understand totally. So we're going to discuss the different types of stigma so that, our listeners can understand, because it's good to use some examples because, you can explain what stigma is, but maybe other people might not understand. So we'll just talk about a few types of them, and then you can give your opinions on them, and then that will kind of open up stigma a bit more. So alienation, feeling embarrassed, ashamed, inferior, disappointed in yourself, like, with the alienation.
I mean, I've been there when, obviously I was in forensics, so I committed a crime in order to be sectioned. And I felt alienated by my family a little bit at the beginning. They felt the stigma from it. And I didn't. My brother was the only person who really supported me through it at first. But I felt the alienation. I felt disappointment in myself, so I started my stigmaing. I was disappointed. I was upset. I felt, why me? I couldn't understand myself at that point, why I was on that pathway.
Okay, so that's kind of like stereotype endorsement, like applying the stereotypes to yourself.
Yeah,
Through the mental illness and
yeah.
yeah, I understand. So what about the discrimination part of stigma? How did you feel in terms of being discriminated against?
Well, I felt it a lot in my journey, but not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't allow people to label me anymore.
Yes.
Because I deflect it with my own well-being.
Perfect. I understand. That's like the perfect answer, but yeah.
Well, it's a bit like karma. What goes around comes around, and it's fine. I've finally come around to being the person I should have been in the first place.
And yeah, because obviously it's an experience, and like we're going to go into it because you did say it's been, there's been 6 different incidents, but we'll go into that. So along your journey, or this whole stigma journey, I'd say, was you socially withdrawing yourself? Were there times when you be in isolation?
Well,
avoiding people.
Yeah, I got into drugs, unfortunately. They were my downfall. I got into cocaine, and I alienated myself from people, and I withdrew from people, and I moved around a lot, looking for something. I didn't know what then, but obviously it was myself, but I didn't know at that time.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
But as I say, I was an addict, and I'll always be an addict. It's something you have to understand about yourself. When you understand that, then you can deal with it. I think everyone in the world is an addict to something. It's just a question of what you get addicted to, love or alcohol or drugs or money or buying clothes or women with loads of shoes.
One of my addictions.
So, everyone's got an addiction, and it's learning to understand yourself. I went to 3 years of Narcotics Anonymous when I was in hospital. I actually got, because I was on a locked ward, I had to get permission from the doctor every Friday night to go to Narcotics Anonymous. And I went every night for 3 years without fail, until I felt I ended up on the committee talking to people. I was supporting people, even though I had my own issues. But helping other people helped me deal with my own issues, because I saw a bit of me in everyone I spoke to, and it helped me understand myself more.
Does
that make sense?
Yeah, it does, totally. Does that make sense to you, Jacqui?
Because we're all interlocked.
Yeah.
We're all brothers and sisters.
Yes.
We all come from the same, gene pool, really.
Yeah.
We're all human beings,
Yeah. Well, that was really great to hear you obviously associating yourself with these different key terminologies, because it's quite interesting to hear how you can relate to all of these areas, especially alienating yourself. Is quite a difficult, serious one, to be quite honest, withdrawing yourself from society. So how do you think, being stigmatized or stigma or discrimination affected you, or, how would you think it will affect people with mental health?
Well, it affects people with mental health. A lot of people with mental health seem to be quite sensitive people. And life affects them more. I think I'm not a psychologist, but I've done a lot in it. And people, it usually stems from childhood and neediness and stuff like that. And, you know, we all have to go through the journey in order to find ourselves, to get to an equal plane where we can all be like respectful and loving and kind and all those things to each other, you know?
Yeah. Well, honestly, you've actually got me thinking, hearing, you know, listening to your story, to be quite honest.
Me too.
Yeah, it has really touched me,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. We probably should have heard the story before, prepare ourselves for.
Yeah, it's quite
I don't know how to explain. I'm really good with words, but at this point, I can't give you kind of word to describe how I'm feeling right now. It's surreal to hear a real life, you know.
Yeah,
story.
this is real life, and
Yeah,
you're a real life example of,
exactly.
you know, like you work for the NHS, but you've
Yeah.
been questioned, and it's happened so many times. But you know, along the journey, you've been helping people. You've been. It's a lot. It's so good that you've come on the show, like, because this is you know, we need to hear real life situations and real life stories about people, because this is life. You know, this is real life.
Real life. We thank Nash for bringing you on. I'm sure you've got more stories to tell us in future. So we're just going to slightly move to self-stigma. Okay. Tell us what self-stigma is about. And then we're going to go through the, you know, the types of self-stigma.
Self-stigma is about how you feel about yourself in correlation to how people perceive you, how you're being stigmatized, whether or not you believe it yourself and assume the identity that people are projecting onto you.
Okay. So once you've identified all of that, how do you, you know, how do you see it? So how does it make you feel? For example, does it increase your self-esteem, or does it reduce your self-esteem? Or how do you see what I mean? Once you've got that going, what happens?
Well, for me, it was a journey of growth, because I felt it on both ends of the spectrum, because I still self-stigmatize myself.
Okay.
I think everyone does. It's just a question of whether it's negative or positive or somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Because my self-stigma now is that I'm a decent person. I've paid my penance.
Right.
I'm earning my trust in the community. I'm helping people. I'm working.
Right.
I'm respectful. And, you know, I do all the things that are expected of me.
Okay.
I'm setting an example. I'm being an example for everyone else to follow.
Definitely.
Right.
So, yeah, like a role model.
So that will be self-stigmatizing yourself, basically.
That's where I am now.
Right.
But before, when I was doing all the negative things and getting in trouble, I was the cokehead, I was the drug dealer, I was the villain, I was people who used to hurt people and things like that, you know.
Right. So that's
all
like
those things.
That's like the consequences of self-stigma. So focusing on the negative, like self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You know, can you talk us through like some of, you know, the things like self-sabotage and how
for example, how would you self-sabotage yourself during those times?
Well, because it's hard for me. Let me think about that one for a second.
So for example, example would be you being a user. You're sabotaging yourself with these things.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
Do you understand?
Yeah, it's a bit like getting in a rut, and it gets deeper and deeper.
Right.
And you can't get yourself out of it. But what you have to do is you have to learn to climb in order to get to the top. of
So
yourself.
how did you get that help to climb out from
I
self?
had,
Only
I had,
self.
I had faith.
Right. So you had to rely on faith.
Yeah, I got down on my knees and prayed every night, and I still do.
Whoa, interesting. That is something. For you to stop using, you had to use your faith,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
And belief in myself that I could overcome this monster I'd become.
Which is probably the hardest part.
I guess.
Yeah.
What about the rumination? What's that?
That's the process of, that's more of a mental health term. So it's like thinking about the same thoughts which tend to be sad and dark, you know, habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was asking Lee, how
we,
can
we,
you relate to that?
we have something in hospital. They call it the revolving door syndrome. And it's a bit like your brain spinning in your head and constantly dwelling over the past and not being able to move forward, feeling either victimized or being like someone who has been used or feeling sorry for yourself, you know.
Yes. Okay. So the rumination, the process of continuous thoughts.
Yeah.
So within those time where you were self-stigmatizing yourself, did you experience that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So can you give us an example of that? How you experience rumination?
Well, obviously from where I kept going back, because I kept having the same thoughts, thinking I was going to achieve certain goals by doing the wrong things.
Right. Okay. So, well, that's really a good one, actually. Thinking
it's
thoughts.
like it's misguided faith.
Right. Okay. So, lastly, suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Ideation. So basically, was there times where you felt suicidal?
Yeah.
I've tried 2 suicide attempts. I tried one when I was 18, and I overdosed on 138 paracetamol and a litre bottle of scotch, and I was lucky it didn't kill me, or at least ruin my liver.
It's about taking your own life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So did you want to take your own life then?
I did.
Right.
Because that was when my problems started.
Okay.
But the thing was, with all the stigma that built up from the age of 18 to the age of 28, gradually weighs you down until it brings you down.
Right.
So it takes its time catching up to you, you know. It's a bit like one person grabbing your leg, then someone else, and then someone else and someone else, till you gradually fall over.
Exactly. Okay. Well, it's really good that we have you here today. You didn't fall over. Thank God.
I fell over 6 times.
You fell over 6 times.
But I got up.
Wow. So you said you went into admission 6 times. Can you tell us about that then?
Yeah. The first time I had a black girlfriend. And well,
what do you mean, black girlfriend?
I had an African girlfriend.
Well, you're going to hold on a second, Lee. You're going to explain who this black girlfriend is.
No,
because I'm very inquisitive. And I want to hear this person.
No, but basically, her parents didn't like the fact that we were seeing each other.
Yeah,
my parents didn't like the fact that I was seeing her. And everyone was jealous of the love we had for each other. And they all tried to interfere.
Right. And what happened?
On a serious note, was this when you were younger? Because was this when you were 18?
Yeah.
So this was not recently. This is quite a long time ago, because you said you're in the 50s.
Yeah, but this is how it built up.
That's how it started.
This is where my problems stem from.
So Jacqui,
we're going back to the egg.
Yes.
We'll
Now,
go back
lame
to the end.
explain. Lame continue. Lame
Yeah.
start there. Continue.
So basically, where her parents were interfering and trying to split us up all the time, I set fire to their cars in their garden.
Right.
And I never admitted to it. I did to the girlfriend, and we split up. And that was when people started, stigmatizing me. I was this, I was that. And, before long, and when I was 28, I was weighed down with it. And I was a bit like a snowball, gaining momentum and getting bigger up till I was 28. So it all started when we set in fire to their cars.
Their cars. But when you talk about your admissions, it started from there.
Well,
right.
what happened was I got in trouble and I admitted everything I'd done. So I admitted to the fires on the cars. I admitted to 2 GBHs and another attempted arson as well.
Right. Wow.
So what I did was I cleared the slate and thought, right, this is where I cleared the slate. But obviously I didn't, because I went back 5 more times. So
at that point, what admission was that?
That was I went to prison at first.
Okay.
But I kept fighting in prison, and I ended up down the block in seclusion. And then I had another fight while I was down there, and one thing led to another, and I got transferred to a mental health unit where they started to inject me with an antipsychotic because they believed I'd become psychotic at the time.
Right. Okay. Well, all of that falls under self-stigma, isn't it? And obviously ended up, where you were.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on, as Miss Newlove wanted us to go back to another topic. So take over.
Okay.
Miss.
Oh no, I wasn't. I was trying to because when he said he had an African girlfriend and everything, and like we were joking about it, but I was trying to say that 30 years ago that was it, was quite serious. And obviously interracial relationships weren't as, easy to accept as they are now. And, the times that we live in, everything's acceptable now. But 30 years ago, I was probably what, about 9 or 10 or, and depending on the area as well. So I was just trying to bring you to that. Bring your attention to that. That's what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to take the conversation elsewhere.
No, we were just. I wanted to hear the end of the story, actually.
So can I ask you? So when you were, you said you were admitted 6 times. Well, 6 times this happened. You was in prison, then they sectioned you. So you was in prison, but you were sectioned into a mental health.
Yeah, I was on a Home Office section, the most serious. It was called a 3741, which means that they can detain you for as long as they feel necessary, and that anytime you're released into the community, if you commit another crime or incident, then you can be recalled at any time. And because of that section, I was recalled another 5 times.
Oh, so you were sectioned. So is that the term?
It's a lifetime section, though. It was a Home Office section.
So what happened for you to be sectioned the next 5 times?
No, I was sectioned the first time, but it was a lifetime section.
Okay.
I have to have a tribunal in order to get off of this section.
Oh,
right.
Which I'm still on. I'm still on the Home Office section. So
right.
But hopefully in the next sort of year, I can go for a discharge where I have to go in front of a judge, a layman, and a doctor, and they can say, yeah, we can discharge him from the section, and then I'll be like everyone else in the community again.
Okay. So can I just say, are those part of the harmfulness of self-stigma?
Yes, because you believe you're never going to get out.
Right.
And that's very draining in itself.
Right.
Dealing with that day in, day out, constantly at the door, wolf at the door sort of syndrome, you know.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us how, you were treated, when you were sectioned? How did you feel deep down? Did
Well,
you feel all right
when
about yourself?
I've seen a lot of changes in the hospital. I've gone from a hospital where there was no searches to the kind of top security that's more based in all the forensic units. So I've gone from the sort of dawn, if you like, to the pinnacle that is the mental health system now.
Yes. But then I want to take you back. Tell us how that you felt about that when you were going through all of that, being sectioned. How did you feel? Did it affect your self-esteem? Did people, your family disown you, for example?
No, they didn't disown me, but my mother and stepfather, I didn't see them much. It was only my brother that really supported me. But as far as being sectioned was concerned, I had lost the plot a little bit.
Okay, so that's where I want to
go. I wasn't aware of what was going on for probably, I didn't get any community leave for 3 years. I was locked up basically on a ward for 3 years before I got any leave of any kind.
Right. How did you feel about that?
Well, I had to deal with it, and I felt, I physically felt my brain grow.
How?
I just felt I needed more capacity in order to deal with what they had in store for me, I couldn't deal with it in a small head. I couldn't deal with it. So I had to open my mind.
Because we want to understand how you felt. So if we're experiencing any, self-stigma, what are the what are the signs? And then we can talk to people about it.
I felt sorry for myself.
That's where I want to get to.
Yeah, I felt sorry for myself, and I blamed everyone else.
You blamed everybody else?
Yeah, I did. Because all I wanted to do was love.
Right. But then you rebelled in that way.
I sort of wanted I was inflicting the wrath of myself on people that tried to split us up or got in the way, anything that got in the way of what I wanted.
So it's about this black girlfriend. Is that where it all started?
That was where it all started.
That's where it all started.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you did feel all these feelings, because obviously you feel down about yourself and what is happening to you, which is good. Is there anything else that you were feeling that you wanted to share?
No, not really. Not on that question. No.
Oh, okay. What about so we're going to talk about coming out and the opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I was the first time I went to hospital, I was in for about 7.5 years, and then I got an opportunity in the community. I went to a mental health hostel in the borough of Ealing, and I was there about just under 2 years, and I got a flat of my own.
It's really good. What about employment?
I started to work in a shop, selling secondhand stuff and just doing a bit of cash in hand at the time, just to help me out, But the problem was I still had the addiction.
Right.
So as soon as I got money in my pocket, I was back down my dealers, because I hadn't learned.
Okay, so I want to take the conversation to something you mentioned earlier about the NHS system, because obviously you're quite matured now and you've been in this situation for 30 years. So you mentioned that the NHS system has changed now.
Yeah.
From when it was back then, because this was probably the late 80s, wasn't it, when you first sectioned?
No, it was 95.
Okay, 90s. So from then to now, being section, you know, is it relapsing, or I don't even know the word to use, 6 times?
It's got a lot stronger.
What changes have you seen? And you were talking about searches. So what other changes have you noticed within the mental health?
Well, just about how they try to help people with like CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, and therapy, and talking to psychologists. They've got work opportunities in the system, like gardening and bits and pieces, working in the shops that cater for the service users. All sorts. There's a few different opportunities, you know, working with computers and stuff like that, you know.
And do you think that
trying to offer people opportunities to get out of the rut?
And that's kind of the change in the stigma of how people with mental health issues are seen, isn't it? So
yeah, I mean, when I first went there, we used to sense like it was a lot walled. The nurse would let someone out who had ground leaf. We'd send him up the shop for a bottle of vodka, and he'd come back and he wouldn't even get searched, and we'd send him 5 times a day. But every time I come back, things changed. It got more and more strict. Like that, when he got caught, they found all the vodka bottles behind the washing machine, the empty ones, and they realised they had a problem. So they learned from that, and then they introduced security, reception, ringing the reception and things like that when people were coming out, and then searching them and things like that, you know.
So do you think that's what's helped you to change and become a better person?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously I was quite adept at pushing boundaries.
So as the system got better and things were put in place, you weren't able to take advantage, I say.
Oh no, it wasn't like that. I where there's a will, there's a way, and it's my will that has got me where I have. But I changed the mindset, is where I am today. Not the will. The will stays the same. It's just the mindset the will's got me here now. But the change of mindset is what has changed for me, because I've gone from negative to positive.
So when did that actually start taking place? Like, when did you feel, at what stage in your life did you start to feel like you have to change this behavior, the self-stigma, like the way you feel about yourself? When did it start getting positive? When did things start becoming positive for you?
Well, it happened in small steps, really. From every admission, I gained something. You know, like I learned something about myself and grew as a person, until I was finally the person I thought I needed to be. You know, I mean, I'd go down the gym and get myself fit, be reasonably aware of myself, go into the community and get on drugs again. But in the last admission, I realised I had to do something different, because I got sick of doing the same old thing. So what I did was I educated myself. I got involved in groups, in meetings, on the user forum, which is World Awards Interact and stuff, the co-chair, and I educated myself and realised I had more potential than I was showing. You know,
I was going to say the thing as well, how you overcame that self-stigma. So it's good that you're educating yourself. What else did you have to do?
Well, I had to learn to open up.
Right.
To tell people how I felt. Because
that's actually a whole topic on its own, which is a good one. Because if you don't admit it, then you don't know what's happening, isn't it?
But like I say, there's two sides to a story. And if someone doesn't know how you're feeling, then how are they going to understand? How are they going to understand you, you know?
Is that how you dealt with it then?
Basically, yeah. Learning to open up.
So how did you open up?
I had trust issues from childhood.
Okay.
And I met someone who I clicked with this person. It was a practice development nurse. And I clicked with her, and she encouraged me to do more. And I was always nervous and hesitant, but every time I did something, I moved forward. She helped me take the first step. I mean, I won a quality award for the NHS as a service user contribution.
Amazing.
You know, I've been nominated for service user of the whole nation of the country. I was a runner-up. You know, I've been nominated for something over the last 4 or 5 years since I've been in the community, because my momentum's carried on. I've carried on with the momentum of staying positive. Every day I do my little bit of exercise in the morning. I do what I need to do. My well-being, you know, all the little things that keep me whole as a person.
Wow.
There's one question somebody's eager to ask. It's from Marian on there. Marian want to ask Lee. I saw the question a minute ago when it's just gone. Can you please ask him now, how can one help and advise people not to get into what he did? So for example, not to be in the position you were before whilst you were self-stigmatized.
Okay. How not to get there? Education.
When you mean education, what do you mean by education?
Well, through my pathway that I was on, I was swayed not to embrace education.
Right. So were you just being ignorant about?
I was being indoctrinated by my stepfather.
Right. Okay. So that well, it's coming from family, so it's totally understandable. Do you see what I mean?
My mother and my father had different views, and because I was a male, I thought he was the man, and I wanted to be like him.
Yes. Okay. So educating oneself and obviously staying positive, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Opening up to people. Yeah. What about, remember I talked to you 1 minute, babe, about the language bit, avoiding use. How would you avoid using language when you're in that sort of state? Well, being stigmatized.
Frustration can overwhelm you. But
can it?
It can, yeah. And I often wanted to F and blind at people and managed to hold my tongue.
Right.
You know, I didn't think, I felt it would have fallen on deaf ears, and it would have done me more harm than good in myself. I had that awareness about myself.
Right.
Okay. So I was my own best friend, and I used to sort of talk to myself and talk myself through it, like self-coaching.
There's one more question, Miss Newlove. Nathaniel was asking, did the CBT help you? Because we should remember this is an interactive show. We've got loads of
of course.
Today it's really good today. We've got people there. So the CBT, so Nathaniel seems, knowledgeable. Can you tell us what CBT is?
Well, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, and it basically teaches you about thoughts and feelings, and about where thoughts and feelings can lead you into your chain of thinking.
Good. Was that part of your recovery?
Yes.
That's part of the recovery. So we understand, you know,
Yeah.
how it worked. Okay.
So basically, I embraced it. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
It's learning to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because I'd withdrawn and I wasn't interested in nothing, and I thought nothing could help me. I thought I was on a doom and gloom path.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to trust one individual, and from her trust, she introduced me to people I thought she was with. I must trust them as well, and it sort of blossomed from there.
Okay. Well, Lee, I wish we could talk to you longer, honestly, because this has just been such an amazing conversation. You're a hero to some people.
Yeah.
You're a hero to me, just listening to you for like 50 minutes, because it's not easy. Like, we haven't gone deep, but I can imagine how deep it was. And it's, you know, I know of someone who's gone through something similar and hasn't been able to come out. So you're definitely a hero for people that have been in your situation, and you know, you're like a community champion. You've been nominated for awards, you've won an award, you work with Real Insight. So we weren't able to go into that, but you know, you're here because of Real Insight Consultant. I mean, how did you come to meet or get involved with Real Insight?
Through the Hope team in hospital, and through Nash as well. And other people I've met that were on either more advanced or following in my footsteps, like you know, like a chain where you sort of like hold someone's hand and you'll walk together. You know, you might be ahead of the person behind, but there's someone always ahead of you. Right. So it was a bit like a human chain, really. Yes, that's how it is.
I was just going to ask one question before we let you go, because we've only got 10 minutes to go. So now you're being part of the community. You're with us. You're contributing to society.
Yeah.
So how would you, or how you try to support the community by challenging stigma in general, or self-stigma, which is associated with mental health? How do you impact on the community?
Well, what I do is I have to be an ambassador for mental health, and
Right.
prove the weller I can perceive myself to everyone. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the people I've met in the community, everyone has got a mental health issue of one form or another. Exactly. And it's learning to understand each other's weaknesses and strengths. So I wear my heart on my sleeve, basically.
Right.
And I just try to communicate with people and show them that, there is another side to mental health. There is a glimmer of hope. There is, there is life after mental health.
Do you share your stories? Do you go to schools to share your story?
I don't go to schools, but I share it in the magazine.
Okay.
And also I do talks for psychology groups and things like that. I was in a CBT class last week where there were 7 service users, and I told my story and they all stood up and clapped, and I was a bit embarrassed, but yeah.
Well, that is really good to hear. Once again, thank you so much, Lee, for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll be contacting you, and a big thank you to Nash for introducing you to us.
Big up, Nash.
Big up, Nash. I'm sure we've got more stories from you. We'll have more stories from you in the future.
Of course.
At this point, Ms. Newlove, should we recognize people that have joined us?
Definitely. So I'm going to go right to the beginning. We have Stella, who is the CEO and founder of Bestel Foundation, and she's had a lot to say. So she says stigma completely kills one's confidence. She agrees with Lee, stigma is a disease. And then, she went on to say, good for you, Lee. That's how you've got to allow others to, well, this was earlier on, so I won't go into it. Tracy Borham was on. She said, that's my nephew, and I agree with him 100%. So thank you, Tracy, for coming on to support Lee. Thank you so much. Stella said, thank you once again for sharing your experience. It really helps others with their journey, which is so true. Even if it's not a similar journey, but a mental, there's various mental health journeys people are on. You're very like empowering. We had Wendy Mully on. Don't know if she's still on. Thank you, Wendy. Chloe Borham. She said, so true, cuz. So true, cuz. So we have a lot of people on, which is amazing. It's so nice that they've come on.
Yeah, thanks
you.
to
And
Lee.
Marion, once again, thank you. She said, can we talk and help people without faith? That's what she said earlier on.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate on that?
With me?
She said, can we talk and help people without faith?
What do you think about that? What's your opinion on that, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to Sunday school when I was a child. That's where I got my faith, because you learn things. The biggest impact is in your childhood. So you learn faith, whatever religion, there's only one God, and that's the God inside you. So having faith in that God is what you have to learn. If children can be taught about their faiths, whatever faith they want to follow, it's about the God that's in them, not the God they follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going
there's been a lot of other people on, but I think sometimes I can't see them. But yes, Thank you everybody, and Nathaniel for coming on again. Yeah. Thank you. George was on. George is our country coordinator in Ghana. Thank you so much. Jodie Raymond, thank you so much. She said you're amazing, Lee. And everyone just thinks you're amazing.
Everybody's on there,
I think you're amazing too. Andy said, Andy's joined us.
Andy came on as well.
Yeah. Well done.
That's your friend, right? We've got Stella, Rose Prabuba came on. Sari's on there. Thank you so much, guys, for your continuous support. If we've got time, we've only got 4 minutes, but the video is very important for us to watch.
Yes. So can we
Big Joe, if you can show the video for us, please.
Stigma generally, I think, is more about perception than about what's really happening. Perhaps you can imagine that there is more stigma than there actually is, which I suppose comes down to self-stigma, where you really kind of your own worst enemy, if you like.
There are two forms of stigma. There's the self-stigma, which is how people label themselves and how it affects their self-esteem. And there's sort of the stigma from other people externally coming inwards, with sort of labels which need to be challenged, like the stereotypes of people being nutters and psychos and weirdos.
Self-stigma to me is very much linked to a low self-esteem, that you just think you're kind of worthless and not able to function, not quick enough, and whatever sort of labels you attach to yourself.
I think I have at times had a little negative voice in my head or negative thoughts in my head that maybe if I hadn't listened to them I would have been able to do things and do better at things.
In my particular case at the moment, I'm job searching, and you can almost begin to think that if you're sending out your application letters and your CV to various employers and getting no response or a negative response, it does reinforce perhaps the idea that the world is maybe against me.
Part of you wishes that you could just snap out of it and be okay, and knowing that you can't just makes you feel an awful lot worse about yourself. And I certainly went through a period of really beating myself up quite badly, and I felt I had to keep things more hidden.
I would be very happy if one wouldn't need to be afraid of disclosing mental health issues, because if you feel you've got this weight on your shoulder and you cannot tell other people without the fear of them looking down on you, judging you and putting a label on you, then you'll be kind of trapped.
A lot of people won't talk about their mental health problems because it's personal, and also they don't want other people to know that they're ill. But I will talk about my issues because I think it's important to challenge other people's beliefs.
For me, it's as much as I feel comfortable to talk with people, I think it's usually better to have a conversation or to talk about something or to address it than just sweep it under the carpet.
The more self-aware you become, the more aware of your condition you become, the more you can manage it, and you can maybe realise when it's the condition that's affecting the way you think, because it does take over your thinking totally.
You know, we can all get involved in beating ourselves up for not doing things as good as we want to, but actually you don't notice that part of beating yourself up that might be to do with certain prejudices that are out there in society at large. And when you realise that that part of it can be taken out separately, it's for me at least, it's made it easier to deal with it.
Recognising that the thoughts that you might have, negative thoughts, they're just thoughts, and that they might not be a reflection of what other people see or the reality.
It's only quite recently that I've, a sort of light bulb has gone on, if you like, and you think, well, yeah, it's not somebody else doing this to me, I'm doing it to me, which is stupid, so stop it.
Thank you so much, Lee, once again for coming on the Wellbeing Show. And at this point, I'd like to remind listeners that, me and Jacqui are not clinical staff. We're just here to bring awareness about things that affect our well-being. And if you feel like you've been affected by the show, or you'd like to discuss, what Lee has spoken about in detail, you can contact the Bestel team. The details are going across the screen as we speak. And also, I'd like to thank our sponsors once again, who are the NHS Trust, South London and Maudsley, the National Lottery Community Fund, Real Insight Consultant, Diversity Radio. We're streaming live on Diversity Radio, and this show is available at all times, so you can go back and share with your family and friends. 60 Seconds Creative Studio, Gold Diggers Talk Show, and Base, Become a Successful Entrepreneur. So as I said before, and I always say, Bestel Foundation is a charity. So if you would like to donate or help us in any kind of way, you can contact us. And before the show ends, our bank details will come up on the screen as well. So I'll hand over to Jacqui at this point.
So Lee, thank you once again for honouring our invitation. Thank you to Nash as well for bringing you over. I'm just going to briefly talk about Bestel. As you already know, it's a charitable organisation registered both here and in Ghana. Their aim is to address the stigma of mental health within the BAME community, raising awareness, providing interventions and supporting the well-being through the entire BAME community, both in the UK and in Ghana. Miss Newlove has gone through our list of staffing. We've got a large staff team, which you're going to be one of us now, Lee, joining us, supporting families within face-to-face virtual support, delivering food parcels on the weekends and during the week. Regardless of the tireless efforts, every year, the Bestel Foundation, a couple of the professionals go to Ghana to deliver mental health coaching, training, workshops to Ghana every year during the October Mental Health Week. And also whilst they're there, they visit various places, for example, the military hospitals and their prison services, and they teach, the well-being awareness and the workshops there with all these professionals. So that's the aim and vision of Bestel. We will leave it for today. Have a very good evening, Ms. Newlove and Mr. Cohen. And our Big Joe, our technician, Big Joe, thanks for hosting us again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and all the viewers, thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miss Newlove, and I'm one of the hosts of a brand new show brought to you by Bestel Foundation.
The Wellbeing Show is to help reach BAME families, to help with mental health, support and emotional needs. The Wellbeing Show streams live every Tuesday at 8 to 9 p.m. on Diversity Radio via Facebook, YouTube and Mixcloud. So tell your family and friends to tune in as we discuss topics that affect our well-being. The Wellbeing Show is proudly sponsored by NHS South London and Maudsley, the National Lottery Community Fund, and partnered with Real Insight, Base, 60 Seconds Creative Studio, and Gold Diggers Talk Show.